What if you had a lease agreement, you just signed the lease agreement, didn't read the terms and conditions, only to find out that the lease agreement that you signed on, it said that rental won't increase. Now, you find out that your expenses are increasing, however, the rental won't increase.
The question is that for January and December, how much are your monthly expenses? And now remember, you can't go back to the bank and say that, I'm not going to be paying my bond for January and December because I don't have any students in my property. The bank wants its money on a monthly basis, be it. Now, I'd like to emphasize something, right? A lot of people are speaking that you shouldn't be purchasing properties right now because interest rates are too high, or you shouldn't be purchasing properties because the market right now is actually volatile. So anything might happen right now. It might happen that we have an economic crash. If we're having an economic crash, the question is that why are people still purchasing properties right now? And now when I'm saying people are purchasing properties, I'm not talking about people that are just purchasing your rental, your one units, right? I'm speaking about the guys that are actually purchasing blocks of flats. They are still purchasing these properties, and now we are saying that I'm not going to be purchasing the property right now because I'm not ready. I mean, this is something that we spoke about, right? I think on two previous videos or two previous lives, we spoke about if property investing is going to be your main source of income. Now that interest rates have actually went up, would you still be investing or would you still not be investing? And I mean, people that are investing in properties are still investing right now in properties. Now that was one of my eye-openers that, I mean, we might be saying, or a lot of people might be saying, not a lot of people are purchasing properties right now. However, if I'm getting a good deal right now, I'm going to pull the trigger, man, pull the trigger.
The question that whereby a lot of people are asking themselves, should I be buying or should I wait a bit? But trust me when I say that that auction was full. People were bidding. Like there's an industrial that got sold for about 8 million. And then you're asking yourself that if there's so much fear when it's coming to apartments and your single households, and however, when you're looking at your industrials and looking at commercial properties, people are bidding like crazy. Why aren't we seeing things the way they're seeing things? At the end of the day, I really think that the problem is that we do not expose ourselves to what is really happening when it comes to the investor's journey. So when I'm speaking about investor's journey, I'm speaking about the first time beginner. Somebody looking at an apartment. If I'm buying an apartment, what does it really mean as a property investor? If I'm buying a household and getting money from that, what does it mean? Because now once you start analyzing that in terms of, yes, I'm buying this apartment, but the bigger goal is going to commercial. And the most important, because I truly believe this, right, Lebo, that everybody does have this thing in mind whereby, yes, I can start small and I want to scale over time. But now where I think the problem is, because through our engagements with property investors, is what's happening here. Because now you find yourself in a situation whereby you bought this apartment, held on to it for 20 years, and then you're like, okay, what should I buy next? Should I go straight into industrial? But now the question is, if I'm going to industrial, what if I make a mistake? So now it's because we do not know that how do I scale?
So now we had an event.
Yeah.
We had an event, it was awesome. However, I want to give the people that are watching as much value as possible. Yeah. What were the things that you actually grabbed out from our speakers?
And I remember planning it, right? I'm really excited. I was really excited and I still am because of the outcomes. So yes, it was stressful. It was stressful because it was that last event and we did say that we want to end off the year with a bang. But now when you're looking at the planning, because I sat with Leo and we were like, how can we end off the year with a bang? And then it was commercial property. And then the question was, when we sat with the team was like, but guys, people don't know commercial property. So people are intimidated by commercial property. We said that's the very reason why we want to tap into the commercial property space.
Can I just jump in on that one?
Yeah.
The reason why a lot of people feel intimidated is because of the lack of knowledge, right? If you don't know something, you're probably going to be intimidated by it. I remember when I was in grade 1 and I would see my aunt having such a big book going to university. However, when I did get to university, it didn't intimidate me as much as it did when I was in grade 1. Sorry for jumping in there.
I mean, but I also understand why someone would be intimidated when it comes to commercial space, because I mean, if you're making mistakes when it comes to your smaller units and you can see that, you know what, I do understand that for this property I bought it as an investment, however I'm not yielding the results that I thought that I'll get. What then when it comes to a property that's worth 6 million? What then when it comes to a property that's worth 8 million? But now what we are saying is that what if we could set a platform whereby we come through with these experienced people and they let us know? Because that's when we also understood when it comes to commercial space, we really went into discussing the student accommodation. What are the pros and cons about student accommodation? Because when people are thinking student accommodation most of the time, is that thing whereby I want something under NEFSAS, which is accredited, and I'll be making money. But now, if we were to really sit down and analyze student accommodation, this is the conversation that we have with a lot of property investors, that yes, you went into student accommodation. Let's just say that I sold you a property, my property, and then you were like, I told you that you can use it for student accommodation, only to find out that it's not accredited. Like, this is something that's happening out there. There's people reaching out to us that I bought a property, it's got 8 rooms. It was written there on Property 24 that I can, so that means the agent wrote it that I can use it for student accommodation. However, now that I bought it, I understand that I can't use it because it's not aligned with the laws of NEFSAS. So now that's when people are like, I didn't know that NEFSAS is looking for XYZ. Or someone will buy land, build, only to find out that it can't be accredited. So now the most important thing is more of how can we set up a platform whereby we can discuss this?
No, you touched on something at the event, right?
Yeah.
You told someone that they shouldn't be too focused on the NFSAS accreditation, right?
Yeah.
So would you please just break it down? What would be the difference between NFSAS accredited or not being accredited by NFSAS? Is there financial implications that I should be thinking about, or is it something that one should actually consider?
So when it comes to student accommodation, we're looking at 3 types, right? 3 types of clients. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3. Type 1, of course, is your NFSAS, right? I feel like I'm watching, what's that thing called again? What's that thing? Right? You know it. So when it comes to student accommodation, there's 3 clients. We're looking at NFSAS, and then we're also looking at your private. However, now your private is divided into 2. There's your higher private, your upmarket private, and then there's the lower market private. So your upmarket private, that's when you can charge ridiculous amounts, and the students themselves don't mind paying that amount.
I mean, those guys have laundry services, man.
Yeah, it's the whole package. So these guys, sometimes you even find out that with rental for these guys, it's higher than NFSAS. And then you find out your private, which is, I'm sure if you're familiar with Johannesburg and Pretoria, I'll give you those 2 examples. If you're looking at Pretoria, you're looking at Pretoria CBD, because that's where all the action is happening. Whereas if you're looking at Joburg, you're looking at around, what's this place, Brixton, because Brixton is very close to UJ. So that's your private. But now when you're looking at this type of client, which is your third private person, is that they are in a competing market, in a sense whereby my property might not be up to standard, same as Lebo. However, now what we're competing with is that students would then be saying that, but can I pay 1.1 for a room? And now we're competing on that basis. Whereas with NFSAS, it's that fixed amount. So the problem with this is that if you do not know this information beforehand and you bought a property, then when you were running your numbers or doing your estimates, you looked at NFSAS, you said, well, NFSAS, if they're paying about 3.8, this makes sense for me. Only to find out that when the NFSAS guys, or if you do apply at UJ or you apply at a private at an educational institution, they come through and say that we can't accredit your property. So now it's either you're going to be feeding up to that up market, or the private, whereby it's around Brixton. So now let's just say that you fell into this one of Brixton, and you find out that the maximum that you can charge now to your tenants is 1.5. So only to find out that you did buy 20 rooms, you bought it at a very high price. Now you're finding out once you've bought the property that it's not making financial sense. So as much as we are going into student accommodation, we really need to be aware of these things, because this is make or break.
Now I want to go into the fact of using storage, right?
Yeah.
Now a lot of people were saying, we were speaking about storage at the event. A lot of people aren't really seeing the opportunity that storage really comes with. Now, the reason why I'm saying that storage really comes with an opportunity is that with your rates and taxes, and also looking at your water and electricity bill, that's going to be really low, especially if you're looking at someone that's going to be saying, I just want to keep my furniture at your storage, right? But now the thing that you really need to consider, especially when you're going into towards storage, is the security that's going to be there.
Yeah.
So now say for instance, if you're going to be saying that you have a storage facility, however, with the storage facility, you don't have secure security guard. Now, someone might even say that I'm going to come through to your place, leave my stuff at your place, and then they come through and steal their things. Now, people, you don't know how people are. People sometimes, they might shock you, right? Now, it's important for you to always have proper security when you do actually own a storage. Second thing that I'd also like to touch on is insurance. You need to make sure that you have insurance for everything that's within that particular storage, because you don't know what might happen where, right? It might happen that with your electricity, something gets shocked and then it burns up the whole place. Now, if it has burnt up, imagine if someone has a 300,000 carpet in your storage.
I was about to say that, then I put my 300 carpet in your storage, man.
And then
like,
my property burns down.
My friend,
Huge stress. Now, if you are actually going to be venturing into towards storage, you need to understand that there are certain security things that you need to take care of. Number one being insurance. Number two being the physical security guard that would be at the property, making sure that nobody's actually trespassing in the property.
And also your cameras, man. And if possible, if you've got those electrical wiring things, because at the end of the day, when you're looking at the storage market, it's more about you are selling safety. You're selling safety when it comes to storage, whereas if it's more of an apartment, yes, it depends where it is, because people do want safety. However, when it comes to your storage and you are looking at your higher end, those people are not going to be playing, because as Lebo did mention, I'll be thinking that if I'll be leaving my expensive carpet or my expensive watch in that area, I want to know for sure that I can sleep at night because I know that it's safe.
Of course.
So can we summarize it this way, in a sense whereby you can say that it's low on maintenance, in a sense whereby you know that they won't be flushing it 25 times. The toilet won't be flushed 25 times. However, now you also know that the traffic, when it comes to in and out, you just know that it will be a security guard, and also, of course, your clients coming through in and out. However, you also be spending a lot when it comes to your cameras and your electric wiring to make sure that the clients are confident with you.
Of course.
Yeah.
So now there's something that we spoke about, especially when you're looking at your commercial properties, right? Now, with your commercial properties, there is no way that you can have a one-page lease. I remember the last time we asked that how many pages is your lease agreement. There is no way that you can have a one-page lease agreement with a company.
Wait, let's take them through, right? The first speaker spoke about commercial properties, and then now you're talking about the second speaker who's a lawyer. So the lady was speaking about property law.
Yes.
Sure.
So now we touched on the basis of the lease agreement that has to be placed in. Now, in commercial properties, it does happen that sometimes you get a 10-year lease. Now, the question is that if you have a one-page lease agreement with a huge corporation that has their own lawyers, and you were just like, I'm just going to take this lease agreement and give it to them, how are you going to sustain your relationship between them and yourself for the whole 10 years? Now, remember, if our lease agreement is going to be 10 years, we can't make a mistake on that particular lease agreement, because once you sign on it, you are legally binded to that particular agreement that you actually have with yourself and your corporation. Now, if you're going to be signing a 10-year lease agreement, you better make sure that you have a conveyancer that actually looked at that lease agreement and made sure that everything is okay.
I mean, we're climbing up the property investing ladder, right? And hence, that's what we wanted to do, to give people the overview of, if I am dealing with commercial, what should I be looking out for? So now, Lebo touched on something that's very important with the lease. Somebody will be like, but lease is a lease. Let's look at it this way. This is one of the examples that we were speaking about at the event. So now it was more of, what if you had a lease agreement, you just signed the lease agreement, didn't read the terms and conditions, only to find out that the lease agreement that you signed on, it said that rental won't increase. Now you find out that your expenses are increasing, however the rental won't increase. That's the type of things
10 years.
For 10 years, that's the type of things that we're speaking about. I mean, with commercial, I was really excited that we talked about lease agreements that go up to 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. I mean, if I'm to be signing something for 80 years, I want to know everything that's happening in that lease, man. So ultimately what we're saying again is that please make sure that you know your stuff, man, when it comes to property investing, because you don't want to find yourself on the other side.
Sure. Now, the last point that we actually spoke about was student accommodation. Now, the biggest mistake that a lot of people do with student accommodation, number one, is to purchase a property in an estate or in a flat, right? Now, you have rates and taxes, and you also have levies on that particular property. And now, if you only have 2 students living in that property and you were running or you were chasing after NSFAS, that means that in 2 months, which is this December and January, you don't have anybody living in that property. Now, if you don't have anybody living in that property, and now you were saying that you collected only for 10 months. This basically means that you're going to have a shortfall of 2 months. Now, the problem might be that, yes, during the months, you were actually collecting the 3,800 that Neo was speaking about in comparison to what you would have actually been charged in that market, which is around 2,500. But now you're collecting 3,800. The question is that for January and December, how much are your monthly expenses? And now remember, you can't go back to the bank and say that I'm not going to be paying my bond for January and December because I don't have any students in my property. The bank wants its money on a monthly basis, be it it's December or be it that it's January. So now, if you're going to be going into student accommodation, make sure that you understand if you can have 10 people living in the property, but however, you need to make sure that it is also following the guidelines of NSFAS. So NSFAS will tell you that in a property that's this big, you can only fit in two students. Now, if I'm having a property that has 5 rooms and I know that in one of the main bedrooms I can put 3 people, and then the rest I can put 2 people, that's 11 people. Yeah. Now, thinking about that, then that's when it starts making sense, unlike only having 2 people in the property.
And another thing, right, when it comes to student accommodation that I'd like to emphasize, I see this a lot of times and it really hurts, that you find someone who's been working for 40 years, or they retire, with that money, they go and build 40 rooms, and then with the intention of student accommodation. So yes, the idea was good. However, now the question is the implementation. So yes, you did build your 40 units, but now when you go to student accommodation, I've seen this in my family. You go to student accommodation when you go, so you build the 40 units. Now, when you approach the university, they be like, it doesn't fit our criteria. So imagine how sad that is now, is that you spent your last money to build this thing. And then let's talk about the practicalities of what's going to happen, because we've seen this happen so many times. So now once you find yourself in that situation whereby you're anticipating that you'll be getting 3.8 or however amount NSFAS is charging, then the reality of that sinks in when you have realized that the NSFAS guys are saying that we can't. Now you've got another option. So the option now will be, and this is the sad part about this option, I hope you're ready to hear it. So now what will happen then is more of, I can't invest or I can't get the NSFAS guys. So now you're forced to go to the private market. So now let's really understand what is happening in the private market. The private market is competing based, of course, on price being the pushing element, because you find out in a private market whereby, let's just say that we're neighbors. I've got 5 units and Lebu's got 20 units, and it's the same. If Lebu will be charging 3.8 in the same neighborhood and it's private, and I'll be charging 2,000, now it's the laws of economics come back again, supply and demand. So if there's a lot of supply of such properties that are like mine that are charging 2.5 or 2,000, Lebu now is going to find himself in trouble then, because most of the people will then be, of course, it depends on how the finishing touches of mine are. But then we all know that when it comes to buying a property or it comes to renting, you will definitely look at that market, look at the rentals, and also look at the other properties that are selling at that price. Then you'll then take a decision that, do you want to pay premium price or not?
Come to me and pay premium price.